Hey folks, my name is Bill. I'm a developer advocate here at Rerun, and today we're talking about blueprints. Let's go ahead and get started. Blueprints give you the ability to control really the layout of the Rerun viewer. You can do that manually, but they also give programmatic and more or less like templated control as well. And the way to think about it is that like data plus a blueprint is equal to the Rerun viewer. And that's exactly what we're going to discuss today. We're going to go through, we're going to run some code, we're going to read some code, we're going to understand how to save blueprints, how to write them, how to modify them, how to create them programmatically, manually, so on and so forth. And so before we get there, let's talk about what blueprints actually control. They're going to control things like panel visibility, right? Whether you can see the blueprint panel or a selection panel. The data types, right? So like how things are actually going to show up or what shows up by default. The layout structure, so what kinds of charts and how they're arranged, or charts or viewers or 3D point maps or 3D spaces, whatever the case may be, and then time ranges as well as selections. And so let's go ahead and get started. We'll dive right into the code, and after this video, you're going to understand a lot more about blueprints. So let's get started. Awesome. We have now gotten started. So I'm in this blueprint directory. You'll have the code. There's only one file, so it should be pretty simple to follow along. Let's go ahead and run that file. So you can see I have that file pulled up here. Let's run it. We have a number of inputs in here, so we'll block to talk about what's important. So I'll go ahead and run this code, step one. That is great. So here we've got a viewer. I'll just put it down in the bottom corner. And let's go ahead and see all that we have done. We have init, and we've given an application ID. This application ID is actually of immense consequence. Application IDs are how you control which or blueprint is applied to your application. So here you can see in init, everything has an application ID. But basically, because we've given it this name, any future application that has access to the blueprint will assume this blueprint, the latest blueprint layout. That is to say, all applications that share an application ID will have the same blueprint layout if they have run within the same context. So that's a very long-winded way of saying that if you want things to have the same layout, they should have the same application ID. So let's go ahead and talk about what we've done. Here we have generated some text logs. You can see those here. After generating those text logs, by default, they would show up obviously in Rerun anyways, but we have applied a blueprint that has a text log view, a selection panel, and we have specified that we want to collapse the other panels. So that selection panel is here on the right. We've covered that in past gentle introduction videos. And you can see here what we do is we send blueprint, which means we are sending it to the viewer itself. So basically, whenever we hit send blueprint, see if I have my drawings on, it will push it into the viewer itself. Okay. And I guess text log view here corresponds with this text log view. You can see that we've also given it a name, so you know that it is the exact same over here. And obviously all this data is just what we have here as well. So moving right along, we've kind of covered the basics, but let's go ahead and pop open these other panels and open the blueprint panel. So you can see here that we can see this exact layout. And what we're also able to do is we could actually reset to a heuristic blueprint. And that heuristic blueprint is not going to vary that much from this particular one. It's not going to vary from that much, this particular one, because there's only one field and like, hey, it's text logs, right? However, you can see here that when I clicked the reset to default blueprint, that will return to the blueprint that we have specified here. So basically, by sending this blueprint, we've instantiated-ish a new blueprint. So let's go ahead and hit enter and continue. So now we have a 2D scene, and we've got a fancy spiral, so on and so forth. That's all defined here. It's not important how we went about defining it, but you can certainly understand it there. But let's actually get into what does matter here. So we did log some points 2D, and you'll see here that we specify that we want a 2D scene, and we've given 2D scene. There's the name up there. Okay. Whoa, whoa, easy there. Let's see if I can undo that. Okay, whatever. Let's go ahead and just do it again. I think I misclicked. So 2D scene, that's all great. So one thing is we specify this background color. You can do that here, right? So there's going to be a number of options that are available for these blueprint panels or blueprints writ large. I think one thing that's very interesting here is the visual bounds, which basically says like how zoomed into the frame are we, right? So if we click out of here, we can zoom in and zoom out and obviously specify where we want to start. Again, we have collapsed the panels as well, such that we do not see the other panels. They are obviously still here. We can click them open. We can see them. That is all well and great. But for all intents and purposes, they are not here. One thing that is of note actually in here as well is that you can see that all of our history is still here. And if we actually go back in history to when we had like run the log, what we had done up here, you can see here that because we don't have an appropriate like text log view, anything that can view these text logs, all that we can see is this blank panel or 2D scene panel, right? And that's because it is defined in the blueprint, that the most recent blueprint, and it has that background color, which we defined as part of the blueprint as opposed to our data. So that's of interest, and let's go ahead and continue. Awesome. So now we have a map. We should have some points in here. It's going to take a second to load. I think it's loading it from Mapbox here. Okay, so yeah, we've just done the entire world. So here are the geo points. Okay, here we go. So we have specified a map view. So we have this latitude and longitude, and we had actually logged some points here, and for some reason those aren't showing up. Let's go ahead and run this, see if there's something I've done along the way. So we did that. There's our spiral. Okay, there we go. I'm not sure why it popped up there. I think it's probably something where I've been developing it here. Okay, so this is a little bit more expected. So we have a couple of dots outside of the beautiful, or within the city limits, it appears, of the beautiful Budapest. So you can see here that we have specified a map view, that the origin should be centered on these points. So we've gotten some control of how zoomed in it is, as well as the background here. Which basically says that it's OpenStreetMap, okay? So this is just another example of a fairly focused panel, but that we have a number of these different display capabilities, right? We gave this one a name, we specified the origin. I guess somewhat obviously we could even override the contents, the zoom, the background, so on and so forth, and we had sent that along. So let's go ahead and jump to the next one. So things are getting a little bit more interesting. So we have sent a more sophisticated blueprint that's going to do two things. I do not want to print it, miss or save it. All right, so one is we have basically combined the spatial view that we had done before, which corresponds to this 2D scene, and then the map view, which corresponds to, you guessed it, the map view. And we said we want to expand the time panel as well, expand the blueprint panel, and we want to collapse the other ones. Additionally, we also said we wanted the text log view, so you can see that right here. So again, a long-winded way of saying we have programmatically controlled the layout, and that's which we view right here. And the power here is that you can make it so that certain things will be displayed for your application if certain things come up, right? So say that you have a perception or an autonomy problem, the robot will, or rather you can send the correct blueprint that helps you diagnose what's going on with the robot at that particular point in time. I think we'll get to the next thing here too, which is we want to save this particular blueprint. And that will come up later. It's not really relevant right now, but it goes to say that we can save these here and we can provide an application ID as well. So you can see here that, so for this application, I want to apply this particular blueprint. And I'm going to leave it as my favorite blueprint for now. But somewhat obviously, you could see a reason to change it to the original application ID that we had here if you wanted to apply it to this data. So let's go ahead and continue again. Great. Now we have a nice big grid. You can see here that we have logged some other data. We've logged some 3D points, a little mess right there. We've got this trig panel as well that shows a series line, blueprint information. This is more of just like, I think you should read this code. I don't want to like go through every single point, but it's more of an expose of a number of the different views that you can provide, from spatial, 3D, bar charts, tensor views, text documents, time series, text logs, so on and so forth. And you can really start building up some information density here. I think that this is a good time to talk about customizing the blueprint at manually, as it were. So what you can do is you can drag these things around to be able to rearrange them. So you'll see here that I'm putting it in a different cell. I can specify that I want to maybe split this one horizontally. I can even split this one vertically here. And now we're kind of getting into these different containers that you can have in a blueprint. So here we have a horizontal container. So we have two items horizontally. And I'm also able to add these manually, by the way, for these particular containers. So you can see here, we have our horizontal container that refers to this particular one. We have the vertical container here, which corresponds to this particular container. That's the wackiest square I've ever drawn. A tab container, which lo and behold specifies the tabs. This one is not in a container, but it's within this overall viewport, which is a grid container. So there's grids, horizontal, vertical, tab, so on and so forth. We really have them all here. And so with that, that was the latest one that we had sent. So yeah, now that we've done this, we've done some manual configuration, let's actually play around with the output data. So what I did previously, and you'll find in the data folder, is I have written out a couple of different blueprints and blueprint examples. And so what we are going to do is we are going to open up this blueprint example, which will have the exact same data. And you'll see uses the blueprint, the last blueprint that we had specified because of the application ID thing that we had described. And so given that, what we're also able to do is we can save this particular blueprint if we like, okay? And we can also do that from the panel as well. We can also import a blueprint. You saw that I just import it there. That import into a recording allows us to import a variety of, well, I guess any number of blueprints that we want. And this happens kind of regardless of application ID. And so with that, we can save another version, save this manually. Of course, we can tweak it manually as well. So I'll make it a vertical container, and then I will save the blueprint here as well, and that will allow me to save it. So from there, you've really seen how we can control defaults, how we can specify standard ones. There's a little bit of magic in this application ID bit, but with this, we have been able to control and modify layouts both programmatically and manually. And so with that, I'll leave it there. Have fun with blueprints.